what I have to you is a salad which has a naturally distinction of its own. I use roses. You use roses normally for crystallized form in confectionery. It has been used before by the Romans who used to seek them or dunk them in wines. We still use roses in cocktails. There's no reason about it. But roses are perfectly edible. And in my complex salads, I do not use either oil or vinegar. Instead, I use pineapple, fresh pineapple, yogurts, nuts, and I liquidized all the ingredients together with a drop of vermouth. Now, you may very well say, why vermouth? Vermouth has 40 herbs. Every one of them are culinary herbs, and the reason I use them, it saves me the bother to add garlics and tarragons and all kind of herbs which sometimes can upset a dressing. So what I have done today is a conventional salad with mixed ingredients, which Henry will list the ingredients later on, so you will have the content.
Sure.
And a nouvelle cuisine style of presentations, if you fancy that kind of cuisine, which I have done here on a plate. And I hope the camera will take a close-up of that.
Sure. There it is. That is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. It's almost too good to look at, to eat. Too good to eat.
This is exactly what nouvelle cuisine is. You look at it, you pay a fabulous price for it in the big hotels, and you had a good meal. But I still prefer the old-fashioned thing. So I'm going to complete that salad here by making a little nest of my ingredients, because you may say there's nothing to it otherwise.
Oh, no, it looks so
As
beautiful,
you say,
Jean.
I have mouli. Mouli is a white radish, which the Japanese use a lot, but in my grandmother's garden we grow them, and I grow them too. I have mixed all the ingredients with bean shoot, incidentally. The French are going Chinese, you may say, but it's very true. We're influenced by the Chinese and the Japanese because they're great cook. And I'm going to complete that little salad here with little eggs will go nicely nesting in the roses.
Quail's eggs, are they?
Quail's eggs.
Yeah. And you leave the shell on, Jean?
Yes, we always leave the shell on for identifications, because otherwise it could be any eggs of the birds, which in England are forbidden.
Yes.
But the quail's eggs are
of course
bred in this country.
Yes.
And then here you have, of course, the conventional salad, which have mixed all together, and you do a tossing. You will remember that the dressing I have, I repeat again,
Yes.
is yogurt, nuts, which is flake almonds in this instance, a little onion,
Yeah.
a little bit of roses, plenty of roses, and a little bit of vermouth. Not too much, you know, you just put enough there. And as you say, you always have, as a principle of mine, don't take any notice if you don't accept my principle, but there's always one for the pot and one for the chef. It's a good management, this. Then you liquidize the whole thing. I'm not going to bore you with the liquidizing process, which will take 2 minutes. And then I got this type of dressing, which is like a salad dressing. Now remember, all the fat has been cut out, all the vinegar has been cut out, and the wine, which has no acetic acid in vinegar, but acid tartric, which is quite suitable for the delicate stomach, produce a very mellow, modern nouvelle cuisine dressing.
So that the dressing in a nouvelle cuisine salad is actually underneath.
It's always, that's the point. Nouvelle cuisine has been, criticized and it has been praised. But nouvelle cuisine is the style of presenting food in a manner you say, I want to eat this. And the old-fashioned way, we used to cover everything with sauces.
Yes.
And you didn't know what you were eating.
That's right.
And today, whether you have a grilled sole tartare or place tartare, you put the sauce underneath, the place underneath, a nice little wedge of lime or lemon. We use a lot of lime in modern cuisine. It's more attractive and the flavors more delicate.
Oh, much more tasty than an ordinary lemon.
You see? And as you can see, you can even eat a petal later on. You will see by yourself that it's perfectly edible.
Yes. If we throw up the recipe there, lads, while Jean continues to work away here, there it is. 4 ounces each of bean shoots, mange tout, peas, onion, carrots, mouli, pineapple, celery, green and red peppers, and watercress, and 2 ounces of rose petals. Now, the dressing is a raw egg. Am I right here?
Yes, raw eggs, which you break in, yes.
4 ounces of almonds,
yes.
2 fluid ounces of dry vermouth, and a fluid ounce for yourself. Petals of 6 roses, quarter teaspoonful of salt, pinch of pepper and ginger, a quarter teaspoonful of French mustard, teaspoonful of honey, a spring onion, and 3 fluid ounces of yogurt. So yogurt, onion, honey, mustard, ginger, salt, roses, vermouth, almonds, raw egg, into the grinder, whistle, 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 and out it comes. And put the dressing down on the plate first.
On the plate first.
And then I presume, Jean, you could decorate it with anything.
Anything, but also the dressing is used as a dip.
Oh, yeah.
And you can liquidize the entire salad as a dip, and you eat it with French toasted piece of bread as you have here. And you will find that it's perfectly palatable.
We'll take a break as I do. Don't go away for a moment, lads. Hold your whist thereby.
Okay, 6 o'clock this evening. Showers will start to die down, but there'll still be 1 or 2 lingering around, and particularly in the north and on the western coasts there. But in the southwest, they'll have died down during the afternoon, I think, only to give way to a bit of cloud coming in early tomorrow morning, accompanied by rather a lot of wind, I'm afraid. Tomorrow, therefore, not looking too good in the extreme west, starting off very nice there in the east. And next week, well, the middle of the week, from then on, magnificent. Henry.
Good man, David. That's excellent, grand stuff. I didn't pick it all up, but I'm sure it was terrific. I did indeed, David. There's just an interesting story at the bottom of the Sporting Life here this morning, which says that taxmen are investigating Arab gifts. I don't know if we can see it there, lads. Said the Inland Revenue are investigating reports that trainers, jockeys and stable staff have received lavish gifts of cash and jewellery from grateful Arab owners. The probe follows rumours that one stable lad, listen to this, one stable lad, supposed to have been given £15,000 in cash, and that every other worker in the yard £1,000 after a classic win. Now, it wouldn't be for me to say, but you wouldn't need to have 2 noses on your face to be able to work out where that might have happened. Anyway, it's later on in the programme this morning, we've got Shashi Tharoor from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees to tell us about the refugee situation in places like the Sudan and Southeast Asia. We've also got Jane Ash is going to be in another Schools Out, Roving with Rusty. Jean Conil is already in the kitchen, I'm delighted to say. We've got hip-hop dancers. We've got William Bustani, who's playing the flute. We've got Cynthia Lennon. We have got... who else have we got? We've got Keith Barron from Duty Free. And we have Elizabeth Quinn, the actress, of course, all coming into the studio between now and 9 o'clock. Don't forget, we go on until 9 this morning. But at exactly 7 o'clock, here is the news from Adrian Brown.
Good morning. In America, up to 150 people are feared dead after a Delta Airlines jet crashed and exploded while landing at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport earlier today. So far, 35 people are known to have survived. The plane was flying from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to Los Angeles via Dallas-Fort Worth.
The Delta Airlines flight was en route from Fort Lauderdale to Los Angeles via Dallas. The plane was attempting to make a scheduled landing at Dallas-Fort Worth during a blinding thunderstorm. Reports are still sketchy, but it seems that the crash was weather-related. Eyewitnesses say the jet nosedived and the tail separated from the fuselage. The plane then disintegrated and crashed to the ground. One part of the plane landed on an interstate highway, decapitating a motorist. The Dallas Medical Examiner's Office has been told to expect as many as 150 bodies. There are at least 35 survivors. Emergency crews ferried them to hospitals around Dallas, and at least 10 of them are said to be in critical condition. One survivor told reporters what he thinks happened.
I thought we had landed, and I think, in fact, we had hit something. The next thing I know, I saw the flame coming, and I thought we were going to explode.
Dallas is the world's 3rd busiest airport. The crash investigation will continue for many hours to come. Simon Marks, TVAM News, Texas.
At home, the row over the BBC's decision to veto a documentary featuring a man said to be an IRA leader has intensified. Journalists at ITN voted to join their BBC colleagues in a 24-hour strike on Wednesday, the day the programme was due to be screened. Journalists at TVAM and Thames Television vote on Monday. Meanwhile, the BBC have revealed why they banned the controversial programme.
The BBC's governors say they banned the programme, including an interview with the IRA's alleged Chief of Staff, Martin McGuinness, because crucial guidelines for sensitive issues weren't followed. And they say the terrorist view was portrayed too sympathetically. Meanwhile, ITN journalists say they decided to join the strike to ensure they're never put under the same pressure. ITN bosses immediately responded by invoking an industrial disputes procedure in an attempt to ensure that the journalists worked normally. But father of the chapel, Giles Smith, says the strike action isn't aimed at ITN and the union won't recognise the procedure.
We want to stress that this action is not taken against our own management in any way at all. Indeed, we would think that it was in our own management's interests. This is the way our members feel, because we could be the next to be put under the sort of pressure the BBC were put under by the government.
ITN's management could now take their case to court.
Security forces on both sides of the Irish border are on alert this morning to stop an American fundraiser for Republican activists from entering Northern Ireland. Martin Galvin, the publicity director of NORAID, has been banned by the British government from entering the province. He's expected to fly into Dublin later this morning for ceremonies next week marking the introduction of internment without trial. Last year, Mr Galvin ignored the ban and turned up at a Republican rally in Belfast. A 24-year-old local man, Sean Downs, died from a plastic bullet wound when police moved in to try and arrest Mr Galvin. Britain's high streets look set for a big shake-up following the takeover of the Debenhams department store chain. Last night, the Burton Clothes Group claimed to be on the verge of a multi-million-pound takeover of the 67 Debenhams outlets. Their bid is worth £567 million. They're expected to release details backing up their claims later today. In South Africa, black mine workers meet today to work out a strategy of disruption that could cripple production of gold and coal mines vital to South Africa's economy. The Black National Union of Mine Workers say their members voted overwhelmingly for a strike in a recent ballot at 16 of the mines where the NUM is recognised. A cheque for nearly £1.5 million from the Live Aid famine appeal will be handed over this weekend to help millions of starving people in the Sudan. As money continues to pour in, the appeal deadline, due to expire yesterday, has been extended. Organisers believe about £40 million has been donated after the joint Wembley and Philadelphia concerts on July the 13th. The money will buy trucks to ferry food to the famine areas. And that's the latest news at 7:04. Now back to Henry.
Thank you very much indeed, Adrian. It is just gone 7:04. Michael Morris has not only news of sport, but also a very special guest. Good morning, sir.
Right. Good morning to you, Henry. Our guest this morning is one of the world's fastest men on two wheels, motorcycle star Wayne Gardner, who's taken time out, thankfully and gratefully, from practice for tomorrow's Marlborough British Motorcycle Grand Prix at Silverstone to be with us here this morning. Just to prove to you that we've got a real winner, here's Wayne in action at Donington Park.
And there's McElnay, and just ahead of him is the race leader, Wayne Gardner. Well, are we in for a dramatic end to what's already been a dramatic race? You can see them. McElnay's almost... They're coming underneath the back straight. McElnay, it's now or never for McElnay if he's going to do it. He could try it on the braking. He's going to get closer to Gardner, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Gardner goes through the chicane for the last time, and McElnay is very close. They were trying hard, and Gardner almost made a mess of it with the wheelie celebration.
Wayne, I tell you what, Henry and I have just been gasping. Every time we look at pictures of that sport, I certainly, for one, think he's going to come off. There's no way he can stay upright this time. It is a very dangerous sport, isn't it?
Danger is a major factor, yes. Unfortunately, it's just one of those dangerous sports.
Yeah.
And you just try and put the danger to one side. I mean, you try and forget about it as much as possible, but you know, of course it's there and it's always in the back of your mind. But you always try and ride within your limits, and I believe in having safety limits. If you can ride in that, then it sort of minimises safety and you're usually okay.
The most amazing thing is, though, why it doesn't, when you're coming around the corner there, when you have your right knee out and right-handed bend, I mean, how far away from the ground is your knee? 1 inch, 2 inches?
It's actually scraping on the ground.
Carry me out. Carry me out, Henry.
Don't tell me anymore.
Let's have a look, actually. We've got one of your bikes in the studio. Actually, that's carrying the famous Barry Sheene number, isn't it, that?
Yes, I finished 7th last year in the World Championship, and Barry retired this year, and I took on his number.
Well, we hope you get the same success as Barry, we really do. Looking at, just out of interest actually, that bike, how fast is that? As a layman, I'm not sure how fast it goes.
Well, I'd say anything up to about 300 kilometres an hour, which is fairly fast.
0 to 60 in how many seconds?
I'd say 4 or 5 seconds. It's fairly fast machine, and They're only 500cc, but they're very, very light. They only weigh 120 kilos.
Yeah.
So
it really does help to be mad, doesn't it?
yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a saying that you, when you go out on the racetrack, you put your brains in the toolbox and you go out and race around the track. But no, it's actually quite a technical sport now. It's because of tyre development and machine and chassis and suspension development and also engine. So it's a very technical sport. And it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's certainly climbing fast.
Yes, indeed. Now, of course, it's flattering to you, but you are being tipped as a future world champion. It's also a bit of a burden, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a person that likes to go out there and just sort of surprise everybody.
Yeah.
And when they put on the pressure, well, not pressure, but when they say, oh, yeah, Wayne's going to be world champion one year or whatever, you start to think, well, will I? And you hope you're going to be to sort of live up to your expectations. Yes. But I just hope it can come true, that's all. I mean, still a long way to go yet. But
Tell you one of the things that always surprises me about your sort of sport, and indeed sports like motocross, at Silverstone is how big will the crowd be there? It's going to be massive, isn't it?
yeah, they're usually about 80 to 100,000.
80 to 100,000. So here we have a sport with passionate followers, and yet, as you well know, no way is it considered a major sport in Britain.
No, unfortunately, I think it's got the old leather jacket tied in with the motorcycles. You know, when people think, oh, leather jacket people, you know, black leather jacket and Hell's Angels and riding down the highway with your choppers and things. But it's actually not that. It's a very well presented sport now, well, like with big sponsors and that in it, like Rothmans and Marlboro and people like that. So it's changing slowly, but it's going to take a long time, I think, and we just hope it can continue.
Oh, yes. It's, actually, I have to put it to you, that I do this to all Australians who visit us. You are actually now British, aren't you? Let's be honest, you're riding for the British Honda team. You are now an official POM.
That's what they say, yes. No, I rode in the transatlantic team this year, which is the British versus the American team. And no, I was quite proud to, actually. And I've got a house in here in England. And it's basically a nice place, and I like it here, and everybody classes me as a Pommy now, yeah.
Wayne, given a choice between Silverstone, motor bicycle racing, which is in circuit, which is in an organised area, and, say, the Isle of Man and the TT races, what do you think the argument between those two? Because every year, for the last 30 years, people have said this will be the last TT because it's either too dangerous or...
Absolutely.
You know, it's like the Grand National.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's got a lot of tradition, the Isle of Man, and I believe in horses for courses. And like you got Joey Dunlop, who rides for the Rothmans Honda team, he races the Isle of Man, and that's his type of sport and his type of circuits, and he was brought up and lives on them type of things. Where I'm more to, and a lot of other riders, Freddie Spencer and so on, are more to Grand Prix circuits and purposely built circuits for more safety, I believe in, and also you don't have a World Championship 500cc at the Isle of Man, you have it in European circuits.
Sorry to ask you about another rider, but Spencer, I understand, is on the threshold of doing both the 250 and the 500. Will he?
Yeah, most definitely, I think so. He's a one-off rider, he's incredible, and he's got good machines, he's got good backup, and he's a pretty switched-on lad, and he uses a lot of, he puts a lot of technical side to it, and it comes out with a win every time.
Wayne, great to see you, and thanks very much for coming in. And I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. Wayne Gardner will win.
We hope so.
You've heard it here first.
That's your last chance gone out the window now, so I'm telling you. The Mike Morris benediction.
No, always correct. 3 days late. Now, while Wayne's in action in the Grand Prix for bikes at Silverstone tomorrow, there obviously is the Grand Prix for cars at the Nürburgring in Germany. No doubt the talk of the track this morning will be yesterday's fastest qualifier, Teo Fabi in the Tollman. And that really is quite a remarkable achievement when you think that that team were on the brink of folding just a few races back. Second fastest, Stefan Johansson's Ferrari, with a Prost third. The fastest Briton there, incidentally, Nigel Mansell, who's in 10th position on the grid. Some good news from South America. Rally driver Ari Vartan and an Irish co-driver Terry Harriman are now both out of intensive care after a very, very nasty accident in their Peugeot. Vartan is on his way to France this morning for an urgent operation on what we hear is a badly damaged knee. Well, now cricket, and England start the third day of the fourth Conil test in a very good position. Their steady start put them on to 233 for 3 in reply to Australia's 257 all out. Here's Gary
A
Champion.
form of breakdancing came to the Old Trafford pitch yesterday. Graham Gooch's swipe forcing umpire Dickie Bird to jump, but it wasn't for joy as he limped away in obvious pain. Gooch and skipper Gower formed the perfect partnership, but officials obviously weren't invited. Mr. Shepherd managed to miss the swipe, and Mr. Bird certainly wasn't going to be caught out a second time. Eventually, though, after a terrific performance from Graham Gooch and indeed from David Gower, the two of them fell, but they'd knocked up 121 between them, sustaining a terrific run. Before Lamb and Gatting then stepped into the breach, and they took England closer to Australia's first innings total of 257.
Another Morris prediction, certain victory for England there. Now racing, James McGrath is not with us, but he's given us the wisdom of his ways and pearls of wisdom for all our sport, for our racing bulletin. The national hunt season kicks off today with meetings at Newton Abbot and Market Rasen. There's flat racing at Goodwood, Newmarket, Thirsk and Windsor. The early morning going news at Goodwood, we're told it's good to soft. Newmarket also good to soft. At Thirsk and Windsor, good. At Newton Abbot and at Market Rasen, it's good to firm. Now ITV cameras are at Newmarket to bring you coverage of the first three races from there on World of Sport. However, the main action is at Goodwood, and as we move into the last day of the summer meeting, Willie Carson has gone to the front in the jockeys table for that Ritz trophy. The big race of the day, though, is the Vodafone Nassau Stakes at 3:10, a race for fillies over 1.25 miles. With £35,000 in prize money, not surprisingly, there's a strong field. 11 runners facing the starter, including one of the best 3-year-olds in Europe, Al Bahathri. Well, she runs 1.25 miles for the first time today, and Jim thinks that if she's in the sort of form that she was at Newmarket last month, she'll most definitely be the one they've all got to beat.
But we're just over one to race. It's Al Bahathri from, in second place, Bella Calora. Northern Aspen, the joker in the pack in the striped jacket on the left of the picture. Coming inside the final furlong, Al Bahathri, Bella Calora from Evergenial and Northern Aspen. And Al Bahathri being strongly pressed now by Evergenial up on the outside. But Al Bahathri's determination is going to win her another race. A cracking performance, Al Bahathri wins. From in second.
Well, controversial for the last, Jim's nappy is Regal Steel in the 3:30 at Thirsk. His each-way selection, Stockhill Lass, in the 4:40 at Goodwood. And incidentally, Jim will be back with us next Saturday. Now, athletics was back on these screens last night. ITV cameras providing extensive coverage of that Grand Prix meeting at Crystal Palace. There was a walkover win, let's face it, for Mary Slaney, but it was a different story for 800 metres favourite Joachim Cruz. He was very nearly beaten by Scotland's Tom McKean.
It's the only challenge to this Brazilian trio at the moment. McKean has really forced his way into a good position, though, and has taken Barbosa, and now has Cruz in his sights. He's left it too late to take him, but what a very creditable second place for McKean. Cruz the winner.
Well, a little bit later, Seb Coe showed that he's still not quite at peak fitness.
This is a race, certainly, that has hurt. Delise has come through to challenge for second place. Coe is in third as Delise bursts to the front of the field, and Coe has followed him. He still has found that astonishing final kick. But is it too late to head off the Swiss? It is. Delise wins it. Coe second.
Elsewhere in golf and in the Scandinavian Opens, the Swede Mats Lanner shot a 6-under par 66 and took a 2-stroke lead over the chap pictured there, Sandy Lyle. But undoubtedly he's got more to say about that tournament. That's it from Sport, Henry.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks very much to Wayne. Wasn't it nice that Sandy Lyle has decided to honour a commitment to play in the Glasgow Open next week?
Absolutely.
Even though he could have gone to America. As he said, just because he's British Open golf champion doesn't mean he's money is the only thing in his life. 16 minutes past 7 now. Down in London's Brixton area, things are really hip-hopping. Now, I wouldn't normally use that type of phrase, but there's a reason, and it's because body-popping, breakdancing are what street culture is all about these days. The British Alliance is a new organisation which is trying to discourage youngsters from being what they call passive consumers and encourage them to develop their musical and creative talents. Now, how they do this is by offering workshops and opportunities to perform, and they hope in this way to keep young people off the streets and give them a bit of direction in their life. Now, the whole idea has proved so popular that a national hip-hop championship was launched. Now, that is not Mike Morris on the way to the bar, but it's, but in fact, it's the type of breakdancing, and it's terrific stuff. So what we decided we'd do this weekend was to give you a taste of what you could see if you go along to the final, which has been held tomorrow at the Brixton Recreation Centre. We have in the studio 7 young people who are now going to show us what hip-hop is all about. Hip-hop dancers with the principles of scratch.
Fasten your seatbelt. Fasten your seatbelt. Fasten your seatbelt. Fasten your seatbelt. Someone is in distress. Someone is in distress. Distress. Listen here, Buster. In distress. Listen here, Buster. Listen here, Buster. Listen here, Buster. Are you hurt, sir? Are you hurt, sir? No. Are you hurt? No. Are you hurt? No. Are you hurt? No. Hurt? No. Hurt? No. Are you hurt, sir? No. Listen here, Buster. Listen here, Buster. Listen here. Listen here. Listen here, Buster. I'm as fit as a fiddle. I'm as fit as a fiddle. I'm as fit as a fiddle. Fiddle.
Great stuff, great stuff. Well done, that deserves a round of applause. Well done. Well done, excellent indeed. At 19 minutes past 7, time for Earth Watch. Jonathan Porritt is back this week, and we're going to talk a bit about rubbish.
Indeed, indeed, although that was pretty exhausting watching that as a lineup.
It was pretty good, wasn't it? I like the young fellow on his head there,
Yes.
particularly good. What about the rubbish now that we leave lying about, Jonathan? It seems to me to get worse and worse. There was a time that it was just, say, garden refuse or just the rubbish of an ordinary day, and the bins were collected, and we're getting dirtier, aren't we?
I think we are. I mean, one actually gets a feeling of the sort of rubbish piling up in the streets and getting more and more.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of brought a selection of bits and pieces of rubbish in today because it's what is so extraordinary is just the amount it builds up to.
Yeah, do you want to do these first?
Why not?
Show these things first. We have a couple of pictures to show in a minute, but we'll do this first.
I mean, really, what amazes me is the way that shops today encourage all of this litter. And you can quite often walk into a big supermarket chain, buy something that is wrapped up in plastic coverings. Then when you go to the checkout, they'll wrap it in another plastic bag. And then you'll probably be given another plastic bag to take it away with you. By the time you've actually done that, you've really gone through any number of wrappings. And I noticed here as I had my cup of coffee this morning, of course, the old plastic mug was much in evidence, various types of plastic mugs here. And I think that really people have got completely out of the habit of realizing that all of those things are in fact products of North Sea oil, oil products of one kind or another. And they never think really of the cost that's involved in that, not only the litter effect that you were talking about, but also that this is really using up a very valuable resource, which in the future, certainly people won't think of using to make plastic bags out of. They'll be thinking of it for using for much more valuable purposes.
But in fairness, if I go to the supermarket and I buy a quarter pound of kippers and a clove of garlic, I mean, I can't shove them in my pocket and just walk out. And if I come in, I can't drink the tea straight out of the pot.
I mean, it's true, but you could have perfectly good china mugs out there, which would go on week after week. You could go in with your reusable...
They'd be nicked.
That says something, doesn't it?
No, that's only a tease. But I mean, I do agree with you, and I think most people who are, and we've agreed over the months and weeks here, that people are becoming more conservation conscious and more aware of their environment. But would paper bags be better?
Well, some supermarket chains now are encouraging people to take away recycled paper bags.
Yes.
And that really would help. They've been used in America for years and years.
Yes.
And I think that that's the kind of way we ought to be developing here, because then there is a chance that the paper will be recycled. I mean, not necessarily, of course, because some places in England and Wales just don't recycle paper. But it's better than getting your plastic bag and knowing perfectly well that that won't be recycled.
Okay, so we're against plastic then, is that it?
We're against wasteful wrapping, basically, and
Okay.
that's the real key to it.
Okay, well let's see just, because we have a couple of pictures here to show you. Let's see just the effects of what Jonathan is talking about. Now there, I mean, just look at that. I mean, that is appalling, isn't it? And that is actually, as you can see, it's a country road somewhere in England, motor car ready to drive along past us, and they're just dumped on the side of the road. I mean, doesn't it drive you potty looking at that?
Well, it does, and one can see that, frankly, all over the place when one drives around. It's an absolutely typical view, that, and of course it in many ways ruins the amenity value of the countryside, and it creates an enormous problem for people. I mean, someone is going to have to pay to tidy all that up. That's the thing.
And of course then that doesn't only happen in the country. We're not saying that country folk are less rubbish conscious than we are. I mean, just look at the type of picture you can find in an ordinary city street. Look at that. I mean, maybe that is at a time just before the bin men, as we used to be able to call them, called around to collect. But if you just look, there's the plastic, for example, that you're talking about.
Yes, again, I mean, I think it's just the sheer volume of waste that we're creating. I mean, what we must understand now is there's a very big and lucrative waste industry. I mean, people who are literally making a great deal of money out of packaging. And in many respects, people forget just how much that adds to their food bills or to a lot of other bills, the daily items that people purchase. And I think that, I mean, it's fascinating. If one talks to a lot of old people, for instance, they will often say, this is really appalling, because this is just something that they cannot understand the usefulness of. And they think back to the time when everything had a value and everybody used everything very, very carefully. And now in this great throwaway society, you know, it doesn't really matter what you do with it. You can wrap it up whenever you like and chuck it out.
Well, you could actually do so. It takes a very good one to slip past the production team here, you know. When you said throwaway, we have a picture of a bottle bank. Look at that. You see?
That's not
where
bad.
you can actually throw away things to some value.
Yes.
Why, Jonathan, could we not have the equivalent of a bottle bank for ordinary rubbish?
Various people have tried different rubbish sorting schemes so that you separate out the tins, for instance, from the bottles, from the paper, from the various sort of, you know, other bits of refuse. And they are expensive to operate, but certainly when they're done properly, there's a great deal of money in it. And the government recently reported on the millions and millions of pounds that actually are to be made out of the proper use of rubbish. And they call their report Wealth from Waste, which is actually a pretty good motto for what we should be doing with all this stuff.
Indeed. Jonathan, as ever, thank you. We'll see you again next week. And in the meantime, just remember we're slightly against excessive packaging, no matter in which supermarket it comes from. And also remember to use the bottle bank at a corner near you. A break.
Come and spend a fun-filled day at Thorpe Park. There's something for all the family. You can be frightened by phantoms, have fun on the farm, take a water bus ride, watch one of our shows, enjoy lots of rides, float through the magic mill, take off from Space Station Zero. It's out of this world! There's so much to do, rain or shine. Thorpe Park, on the A320 between Staines and Chertsey. Come early and stay all day. See you there.
Because Vitalite sunflower margarine is now available in this very small pack for a tiny 19p, this is a very small commercial.
Boy, oh boy, it's time we had an holiday.
Yahoo! It's not too late to book a smashing Pontins holiday. Just ring up and go.
Oh, we're all glad we're going down to Pontins. It's terrific fun for all the family.
26 minutes past 7. Stand by, all golf enthusiasts, because now we're off to the rough again with another tip from golfer Ian Bolt at Swindon. Welcome again to Swindon Golf Club, and Ian Bolt, our professional, who's been giving us encouragement and tips over the last few weeks. Now, Ian, we have a position here where we're about 30 or 40 yards from the hole. It happens to a lot of amateurs, 30 or 40 yards from the green, after their second shot, and you're now desperately worried, can you get up and down, as we say, in 2 shots? This tricky little shot of about 30 or 40 yards. Why is it so many amateurs seem to make a mistake over this one?
Well, I think really, Henry, it's the length of swing they use. And if I can just show you a second.
Yep, sure. Because we tend to take a 9-iron or a 10-iron or a pitching wedge.
Here we've got a pitching wedge.
Right.
Now, the amateur, or the guy who's slightly clumsy at this shot, usually uses far too long a backswing. He will swing the club up almost to shoulder high, and from there he will either then try to slow into it, and it usually just trickles 2 or 3 yards, or from there he will actually hit it with that amount of swing, and it will sail merrily over the green.
He slows into it because he thinks he should hit it gently or soft.
That's right, because the length of swing is, he knows in his own mind, is a bit too long, so he tries to slow into it to compensate for that wrong length of swing.
Okay, that's the mistakes. How do we correct them?
Well, if you'd like to come over here
right.
with that putter.
I've got a putter.
Okay.
I've also got my 6-iron and my 8-iron.
That's right.
Putter first.
That's right, I'll take these two.
Okay.
Right. Now, if we were on a reasonably good golf course and we had this putt and it was on the green, and this is a reasonably well-cut fairway here,
yes.
What sort of length of backswing do you think you would use for this sort of shot? There we are.
No more than that.
That's right, and you would never really be seen to swing your putter ever in your life up there.
Right.
So from there, let's just try it with a putter, with that short, compact swing.
Okay.
And there we are.
Actually made the green,
Made the green, in fact, rolling up very well to the pin.
Very good. Not bad at all.
Okay, now we've got 3 clubs here. We will try a 6-iron to start with.
Right.
That's the kind of club you're going to use off a reasonably good lie when you've got nothing in the way, no bunkers, and we're going to try and pitch that probably a third of the way to the hole, and it should, with any luck, run the other 2/3.
As if it were a putter shot again.
That's it, same thing. There we are.
Just to think about the game, because I can promise you, Ian will certainly testify to it, and I can say to you from experience that if you think about it, it's even more fun. Join us next week for another tip. Yeah, that does work. Right, sorry about that there. We lost our sound transmission there for some particular reason. The 10-penny piece ran out or something like that. We will show our golf tip again. Now, are we going to show it absolutely now? Start all over again? I tell you what we'll do, we'll show it next week. And don't worry, because we have a plan for us. We were going to end up the golf series by bringing Ian Bolt back into the studio, which we will still do, but we'll get the sequence back going all right from next week onwards. We do apologise about that, but those things happen. It's now 29 minutes to 8, and it is a tragic fact that there have always been refugees searching for a safe place to live. Through his work with the United Nations, our next guest knows a very great deal about the kind of suffering that being what is called a displaced person involves. He's Shashi Tharoor, whom I think we first met about 7 or 8 years ago, Shashi.
Absolutely, on a trip to refugee camps in Africa and Southeast Asia, I think.
Right. Since when you've basically been with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Southeast Asia?
That's right. I've spent the last 3.5 years in Singapore.
Yeah.
Looking after the Vietnamese boat people who were rescued at sea, and who weren't getting rescued at sea as well. I mean, we've had a number of cases of refugees simply being bypassed on the high seas.
Yeah.
But those who made it, we looked after them in Singapore.
Shashi, in recent months here in the Western world, our attention has been drawn to places like the Sudan and, of course, to Ethiopia. We'll come to them in a moment. But we were just thinking that the boat people seem almost to have been forgotten. They're not the media hype that they were, and therefore one is tempted to say, well, maybe it's not as bad as it used to be.
Well, I'm afraid that's not true, Henry. Things are as bad as they used to be, perhaps not in numbers, and this is perhaps why people, including the media, forget that the boat people are still coming out. But though many fewer boat people are coming out now than before, they're still out there on the South China Sea in their leaky small boats, without navigational aids or charts or compasses, without any skills, trying to get out to find some place, some safe haven. And very many of these boat people still need our support and help.
Where are they coming from? Coming from?
From Vietnam, yes, that's right. The boat people are basically from Vietnam. They leave the southern coast of Vietnam and they head out in all possible directions, sometimes with the winds through the Gulf of Thailand, sometimes due south towards Indonesia, and sometimes due east towards the Philippines or Hong Kong.
And there used to be, I remember, I think it was a Dutch ship which, as it were, patrolled in a mercy mission the area, picking up survivors. Does anybody do that now?
Yes, there have been a number of mercy ships. In fact, the Dutch ship was some years ago. There have been Italian, French ships since then. In fact, this year there was a very notable venture by a French ship. There are mercy vessels patrolling as well. But from our point of view, I think the overemphasis on mercy vessels is misplaced, because what we really need is for ordinary merchant vessels, cargo ships, plying their normal business from one port to another, to actually pick up refugees.
And why don't they?
Well, I'm afraid many of them don't, because perhaps they're concerned about delays on the way or delays in port. This perhaps goes back to the beginning of the crisis, when ports in the area were simply not set up to receive and disembark large numbers of refugees, and some ships were delayed. But in fact, over the years now, it's become such a streamlined process that we don't think that ship captains who fail to pick up refugees could be justified in doing so.
Right. I mean, I remember what slim experience I had, and all of it, as all journalists indeed at that time had, was thanks to you and your colleagues. I mean, we went to, I mean, Hong Kong was horrendous for the amount of refugees packed into a square inch.
Still is.
Is it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So nothing's got better?
Well, 10,000 people in Hong Kong, Henry. In fact, the situation there is particularly bad because there are large numbers of people who've been in the camps in Hong Kong for about 5 years and have had no place to go to. In fact, the Hong Kong authorities have, from our point of view, done something rather unfortunate in putting half of those people in closed camps to dramatize the problem, if you like, saying that these people will stay in those closed camps until the others outside can be resettled. So it is a very, very bad problem in Hong Kong.
And then we went to another place, which I vaguely remember, I think it was called Galang, which wasn't much more than a rock in the ocean.
Well, it's a little better than that now. Yes.
People clinging to it almost, literally. Is that still there?
Galang is still there. We have, in fact, a refugee processing centre there where refugees learn English and other basic skills to cope with Western society before they're resettled. That's a little better developed. But there again, there are large numbers of refugees, or 7,000 or 8,000 now, who need homes, who need a new future somewhere else in the world.
Shashi, I remember a bunch of cynical, hard-nosed, hard-drinking journalists, men and women, let it be said, literally been moved to tears by a little Christmas pantomime that the kids put on for us in Galang there. And at that time, one of the big aims, they would actually tug at our trouser legs and say, bring me to England, bring me to America. What about the countries like Britain, like, say, Ireland, France, Germany? Are they receiving refugees as much as they should?
Well, we think they could do a little more. They are doing their best, we're aware of that, but there has been a decline in their quotas for every single country. There isn't a single exception. And we fear that this may result in refugees remaining longer in camps than they should. I mean, there's no life worse than sitting 5 or 6 years behind barbed wire, or even if not behind barbed wire, in a place where you can't get out of, where there's nothing to do really, and with no prospect at the moment to look forward to. So we really feel that resettlement, which unfortunately remains the only viable alternative for these people at this stage, must be stepped up. People must be found new homes in the West, in any country that's willing to take them.
Shashi Giroux, thank you for reminding us of what we hope were not the forgotten boat people, but certainly have been forgotten. We didn't get a chance at the moment to talk about the Sudan and Ethiopia, but we will later. Also, can I tell you, this is a rather special day for you because it's your wedding anniversary.
Absolutely, this is one way to celebrate it.
One way to celebrate by meeting me on your wedding anniversary. A bit tough, really, isn't it? Anyway, to yourself and to Minu and your 2 young twin boys.
Absolutely.
Who are a year old. Many congratulations to you. We shall take a break.
Thank you.
Kiri. No added sugar. No preservatives. Apple juice with a bit of sparkle.
Pure, soothing Vaseline for the small irritations in life.
Things like food, drink and tobacco will stain your teeth every day. But brushing with Pearl Drops tooth polish gently and effectively removes these stains, leaving you with brighter teeth and a nicer smile. Pearl Drops, beauty treatment for teeth.
Cyclax, the skincare experts, have made Moistura all over body mousse. It moisturizes dry skin rapidly, and because it's a mousse, it's light and non-greasy, leaving your skin soft, supple and beautiful again. Moisturizing all over body mousse from Cyclax, the skincare experts.
In addition to the war with Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini admitted today that he's also having trouble with the Kurds. Doctors say that's not uncommon in a man his age. Well, that's exactly the sort of news item we won't be discussing with Lord Jameson of Fleet Street and John Wells in the Sunday programme on Sunday at 8:30. But we'll have Jenny Burnett's Pick of the Week and interviews with the top newsmakers of the week and a celebration of the Queen Mother too. 8:30 Sunday morning.
Welcome back, or good morning if you've just joined us. It is 22 minutes or so to 8 o'clock, time to meet our favourite French chef once again, Jean Conil. Bonjour, Jean.
Bonjour, Mr. Kelly.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. What are you doing for us today? Oh, looks so lovely.
Well, I was told to make something with gooseberries.
Yeah.
And as you know, there's an old saying in France which said it takes an old fool to make a good fool. Yes?
I know, yes, yes.
Because we call this dish in England gooseberry fool. We haven't got such name in France. And I tried to trace the name. There is no such thing. So it's a typical English sweet.
Yes.
A great favorite. Everybody seems to like gooseberries. But there are 600 varieties of gooseberries. 6 varieties. 600 varieties. Most of them are for eating. But in early May, sometimes you get the green varieties, the one which you cook. And this one can be done into a pie, or it can be mashy, boiled up and mashed up.
Yes.
And then the principle of the fool, ladies and gentlemen, is an equal quantity, volume per volume, of a cup of puree of fruits and a cup of puree of cream. Now, you know the nouvelle cuisine, we're not trying to be clever, but we're trying to be sensible. Cream is a little bit taboo. As you can see here, Mr. Kelly, it takes a ton of cream to make a good fool, and I could go on adding.
Yeah.
So there is excellent way of using puree of fruits like gooseberry, raspberry, apples, and so on, is to make what the Central European call kisel. It sounds Russian, but the Polish, the Czechoslovakian, and the German are very fond of making puree, and what they do, they simply thicken their puree with this potato fécule. They call it flour. We call it fécule. They call it flour, and it is in reality starch.
Right.
It's not the whole potato, but it has certain property of viscosity, of tachin. You know, tackiness.
Tackiness, yeah.
That's it.
And it will bind, of course.
That's it. Much better than gelatin, you see. So I've done that. I've
You've
thickened
actually
it.
done these with what we call Chinese gooseberries, or kiwi fruit.
Yes, yes, the fruit now. The gooseberry is the Chinese gooseberries, which are sold, I think, in this country in the name of kiwi.
Kiwi fruit, yeah.
I was told why, and I said it's a little bird who goes and shelter into the bushes. That's why it's called kiwi.
No, it's because they look like New Zealanders.
Are they?
No, that's only...
Are they? Well, I must say this is the best gooseberry I've found in the market. Nice and ripe. They freeze very well.
Yes.
You make lovely ice cream. If you want to make ice cream, remember, is the sugar content to make an ice cream. And it's 50%, which means 200 parts to 1 pound of the puree, 1 pound of cream, whatever. It's always half pound of sugar. Then it will freeze, and you'll make a nice sorbet. That's number one to remember. But when you make an ordinary sweet, you only want 10% sugar. And I personally feel, and I've done some tests on that, that if we could train our children to a threshold of less than 3% of sugar, we would do very well. Because most content of sugar in all fruit is about 3 to 5%. If you have milk, you know,
sure.
it's 3%,
Sure,
5. See?
sure.
So it's an advantage of cutting down the sugar. So now, having done that, I have already begun to make the puree.
Puree, yeah.
I put some cream. I like to put yogurt to make the acidity rather than lemon. But lemon does flavor. So you see, the good acidity is yogurt, and the lemon flavor and lime. See, I'm using lime as well. I like this sweet and sour business because it's more interesting and fresher too. So I've done that. And I'm going to show you, you can do a little job by dipping this glass into the egg white and then into the sugar. Nicely, that's it. It's not too dry. That's it.
Oh, look.
And you've
That's
done
not
it.
bad. I did it right.
Very good.
Lovely biscuits.
And then you fill it simply with a piping
What kind of
bag.
sugar is that, Jean?
Now the sugar is simply you put a little granulated sugar with a little coloring. Red coloring or green coloring or yellow coloring. And it's quite good for cocktail as well. If you want to make a lovely cocktail, or rather a fruit cocktail, you can put some of those fruits you like best, red currant for color, and the gooseberries and the peaches.
This is ready for eating purposes.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
wonderful.
you can taste it later on. Now, why the red currant? In France, we call gooseberry groseille. So we've got the groseille white, rouge, the grosette white, blanche, and the grosette noire, which are the black currants. Black currants. So you, in this country, you call it red currant, white currant, and black currant.
Right.
All in the family of gooseberry.
This is beautiful.
And there is another gooseberry which you call mackerel gooseberry. Now I can tell you
keep talking, Jean. We'll put up your recipe there in a moment.
I found that nowhere in France do we use gooseberry with mackerel. The word goose of the berries, I think originally they used to make a sauce with goose. In Dickens' times, I found out that he used to make a very lovely sauce. So if you want to make a sauce and use these kiwi fruits to make it a savory, and that would be very nice too. You don't have to put sugar, you know. It's not necessarily sweet. You can have kiwi in savory sauce. It's delicious. Do you like that?
There we are. Oh, gorgeous. Let me just gallop through the recipe there for you, John. Absolutely beautiful. You need a pound of Chinese gooseberries, or as we call them, kiwi fruit, 5 ounces of melon pulp, 5 fluid ounces of water, 3 teaspoonfuls of potato starch or corn flour, 5 ounces of natural yogurt, sour cream, the juice of a lemon and a lime, half a pint of whipping cream or double cream, 6 ounces of castor sugar, and 2 fluid ounces of crème de menthe. And if you can get that gooseberry fruit tasting remotely like Jean Conil's one, which I am, even as we speak, consuming.
Yeah, crème de menthe.
I got my crème de menthe. Yeah. Hold on, we will in a minute, Corey, don't be worrying. Yeah, I have to say the crème de menthe adds to it.
Makes to it.
Really terrific. Jean, as ever, merci beaucoup, monsieur.
It's always a pleasure, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll take a break.
Why is your 5 called Ritz?
Because it's a little cracker.
The all-new Renault 5. What's yours called?
Cyclax, the skincare experts, have made Moistura all over body mousse. It moisturizes dry skin rapidly, and because it's a mousse, it's light and non-greasy, leaving your skin soft, supple and beautiful again. Moisturizing all over body mousse from Cyclax, the skincare experts.
Down here in the islands, when the natives get hot and thirsty, they really appreciate something cool and refreshing. Luckily for them, there's new island blends, succulent pineapple and tangy citrus fruits, blended into a long, cool fruit drink that's naturally refreshing. New island blends from Del Monte. It's the most refreshing fruit drink in the islands.
The girl on the right is using Body and Shine Conditioner, an entirely new idea in conditioning from Alberto. It's new because unlike any liquid conditioner, you don't have to rinse it out. And you don't have to rinse it out because it's specially formulated so there's nothing to rinse out. So you get beautiful shiny hair without fussing or rinsing. New Alberto Body and Shine Conditioner. Beautiful hair without rinsing.
Nothing beats that special Nescafe blend and roast to get you started in the morning.
Make me a cup too, Gareth.
Certainly are.
Start your day with Nescafe. Coffee at its best.
Welcome back. It's 13 minutes, isn't it, to 8 o'clock. What must surely be the longest-running holiday in television history has recently decided to transfer itself to the stage and is still going strong. What else could I be talking about except Duty Free? Delighted to welcome one of its stars, Keith Barron.
Morning, Henry.
Tell us about the transfer from the screen to the stage.
Well, I mean, it's just very good. We toured. It's worked amazingly well.
Lovely.
Yeah. And we'll begin very quickly the listing of that because sometimes I get mixed up myself. We've got the Cheddar here, Lambswold, Leicester, Derby Sage, Wensleydale, which crumbled quite a lot,
Yeah.
and the Cheshire. But my favorite this morning is Melbury cheese. It is my favorite because it is almost like brie, as you can see.
Yes,
Mr. Kelly.
yes, I thought it was brie, actually.
And what I like about it is when you spread on a piece of bread, it melts right away, and the flavor is so delicious that I could not resist making up a tart, which
Lovely.
I call Melbury tart.
Okay.
Now, very quickly, you melt the cheese with 5 ounces of cheese, with 2 ounces of butter, and 2 tablespoonfuls of Madeira wine. If you like a spot of
what wine?
Madeira.
Madeira,
Madeira
right.
Any wine of that sort. If you want a little bit of pepper or spicy, you can put the Worcester sauce, which is a classic. And then you add 1 egg. We'll list the ingredients later on, so there is no need for me to waste time. And you mix it very nicely so that it has a spongy cake mixture. You add 1 tablespoonful of wholemeal flour, and then you put that on a mold lined with puff pastry, very thinly rolled to 5 milliliter. You must not make it too thick, otherwise it's stodgy, very thin. Then you fill your tart with this cheese mixture, savory, you see. And with that, of course, you eat that wonderful apple, which again, I have discovered by chance. I've never seen that apple before. It's called Discovery. A lovely
Discovery,
name.
yeah.
Discovery, very acid. I can't stop eating them. And you'll do the same too. Now, you brush the edges with water, not egg wash. Water stick puff pastry, much better. Then you put a round of pastry, which you have done in the same time. Seal the edges quickly. And then you cramp the edges so that it's nice and...
You make it look so easy, Jean.
Very quickly. Yeah, don't give me much time to do it.
No.
And then...
Don't worry.
That's it. And then you egg wash it, finally. Egg wash it. Make sure that the little air from the brush don't stick, because that very often happens with this type of brush.
Yeah.
And then with the back of the knife, can the camera see it?
Yeah, yeah.
You crisscross in various patterns, so that's pretty and quick to do it. And you bake it for half an hour, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius, regular number 6. Now, one thing you must remember about that is after 10 or 15 minutes, at that temperature, it goes golden very quickly. So cover it with a foil wetting. I'm going to put that in the oven to mime the action. And then I will remove one which I've baked before I came.
Ha ha, you see.
You see? As per magic. And here we have the mulberry tart, which, as you can see, is perfectly baked underneath, over, and is delicious to it. Now, the beauty about this tart is that you can eat it for snacks, morning snack, or you can eat it for savory. The English are very, very famous, yes, for their savory. In fact, in one of my books, long time ago, 30 years ago, I wrote about 375 English savory. This is a new one for your book. And I would advise you to eat it with the Discovery apple.
So
because
that's
the two
wonderful.
together goes beautifully. You must have an acid. And very often you tend to have an onion and
Sure.
vinegar. And vinegar
Sure.
is not always good for you, isn't it? But
Sure.
fresh
Sure.
apple are beautiful. I'm
Excellent.
cutting quite a lot of
Right.
started because
Will
I
we-
want everybody of your
So
guests,
will
Mr.
will
Kelly.
we have a look at the recipe?
Yes, if you
Okay,
like now,
there's
if
the
you're ready.
recipe.
Yes.
The Melbury cheese tart. Right. 1 1/4 pounds of puff pastry, 2 ounces of butter, 5 ounces of Melbury cheese, an egg, enough, 1 tablespoonful of wholemeal flour, 1 teaspoon of port wine and Madeira, 1 egg yolk. And you saw what Jean did with it there. And that's it. It's absolutely beautiful.
So you see, if
and you've got lots of pieces there for
enough
all
for
the lads.
enough for your guests to
Enough
eat
for,
it.
for all
I
our
hope that
guests.
it is, yes.
For all our guests.
Which I will leave
Jean,
behind.
as ever, thank you very much indeed.
A pleasure, Mr. Kelly.
And it's been
Pleasure.
a pleasure to you.
Pleasure.
And of course, when you're eating it, you can always sing that well-known song, Here We Go Round the Melbury Tart. We'll take a break and join us soon.
Very well said.
Why is your 5 called Ritz?
Because it's a little...
And of course, Jonathan Parrott and Shashi Tharoor will both be back to us. And speaking of doing nothing, did you know that it's Terry Wogan's 47th birthday today? 47. Come on. We'll take a break.
Buying something electrical this weekend? Look no further. Go direct to Connect.
That's the way, I like it. Fresh, clean. 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 I like it.
Sharon Davis washes her hair every day with new Once from Supersoft. It lavers first time, so she doesn't need a second wash. Once is enough. Now, Sharon recommends Supersoft Once to all her friends. Well, nearly all.
Try a taste of summer with a Wall's pork pie. That rich, crispy pastry and the special succulent taste of pork. There's nothing to beat 'em. Go on. You never know who might pop in for lunch. Wall's pork pies. It's the way they make 'em that makes them famous.
The man from Del Monte knows that nature has always packed its fruits with juice. Now you can enjoy the taste that nature intended. Fruit in juice with no added sugar. One more way for you to say yes to the best Del Monte.
My tummy says it's time for tea, so let's bam toast for Derry Lee. There's enough for him and me and me. A taste of the country. I like the taste of butter, I like the taste of cheese, I like the taste of milk.
They're all in Dairy Lee.
Straight from the top, our mums have found there's so much more to spread around. It tastes just great, it's good for you. A taste of the country.
Craft Dairy Lee. Kids will eat it till the cows come home.
Brushing with Pearl Drops tooth polish gives you brighter teeth and a nicer smile. Pearl Drops, beauty treatment for teeth.
Why is your 5 called Kevin Keegan?
Because it's great at taking corners.
The all-new Renault 5. What's yours called?
The red box from Pi, a 9-inch portable color TV. Small, but perfectly formed. To give you the clearest of pictures, in a color others find hard to match. The Pi red box. Wake up to what Pi is doing.
Right, it's 4 minutes to 8. We'll have the latest news on the weather, probably all over the world, from Dee Philpott.
We shall have rain if the African marigold continues shut after 7 o'clock in the evening. Important time there. Watch that one. Continent, well, boiling hot, sunny in the Mediterranean. In fact, it's been almost too hot. Central Mediterranean, temperatures up nudging 100 over the last couple of days. And early next week, for which my picture is, it'll cool down a wee bit, I think, over here. Meanwhile, warming up a bit around Morocco area. Meanwhile, right up from Finland down to the Bay of Biscay, bits of rain, the odd thunderstorm, and something disturbing it all. But we'll have bucked up a bit after a rather stormy start to Monday, I think. So let's now come back home and have a look at this morning. And this morning has lots of sunshine, 4 to be precise, in the east. But a lot of showers in the west will slowly move over and will build up. In fact, already just flecks of cloud are building up in the east. You can see them, the bright sunny morning warming it all up. And those will become showery and become quite heavy from time to time with the odd thunderstorm, particularly in the north and around these western coasts there. Old Trafford will undoubtedly get the odd shower or two, but sunshine in between, lovely. Blowy all over the country, particularly galish around the headlands and coasts from about mid-Wales to the north of Scotland there. Midday temperatures, well, in actual fact, you remember that lovely summer last year, temperatures were about the same as this, and this date last year, nobody had any sunshine apart from the Channel Isles, such is our memory. Temperatures, well, there you are, you see them. Thunderstorms could occur, as I said, particularly in the afternoon, the Highlands, Scotland, any of these areas here, particularly in the northwest. But come 6 this evening, and a lot of the shower activity now dying down. They'll have already died down in the southwest during the course of the early afternoon. And I think you'll find some of these eastern areas now, they'll be vanishing away overnight. It'll become clear and quite cold, as these westerly winds are still going to blow in a bit of cold air. And then tomorrow, a really heavy blast coming in from the southwest, but starting off okay here. Henry.
Good, that's good news. Thank you very much, David. Just a minute or so before 8 o'clock, could I just tell you that if you're in From, down there near Bath this weekend, go along. The Lord's Taverners are playing cricket there tomorrow afternoon, led by the redoubtable Butch White. And if you're up closer to London, at Kingswood, I think Kingswood must be in Surrey, is it? Kingswood in Surrey, I think it is. The lady professional golfers are playing with us members of the Variety Club in a very good cause tomorrow, all day from 9 o'clock until about 6 in the evening. Every non-entity from the world of television and show business who thinks he can play golf will be there with the lady pros. I have to say a special thank you to Mike Smith and his wife for looking after us last week when we were in Stratford-on-Avon, a wonderful day we had. And look, I want to show you a little picture of a little girl. That's Gemma Hartop, and she was 1 last week. And her daddy trains Celtic Cracker, of whom you will probably have heard me mention on occasion. And finally, before we go to the news, I have to say happy birthday to Natalie Nagel. And our birthday wishes come from our mummy, from Dominic, and from Lee Anna. And I believe you've got some golf gear. And Dominic promises to teach you how to use it as soon as he learns himself. It's 8 o'clock. We'll have the news from Adrian Brown.
Good morning. In America, up to 150 people are feared dead after a Delta Airlines jet crashed and exploded while landing at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport earlier today. The Lockheed TriStar jet was on its way to Los Angeles from Fort Lauderdale in Florida. So far, 35 people are known to have survived.
The Delta Airlines flight was en route from Fort Lauderdale to Los Angeles via Dallas. The plane was attempting to make a scheduled landing at Dallas-Fort Worth during a blinding thunderstorm. Reports are still sketchy, but it seems that the crash was weather-related. Eyewitnesses say the jet nosedived and the tail separated from the fuselage. The plane then disintegrated and crashed to the ground. One part of the plane landed on an interstate highway, decapitating a motorist. The Dallas Medical Examiner's Office has been told to expect as many as 150 bodies. There are at least 35 survivors. Emergency crews ferried them to hospitals around Dallas, and at least 10 of them are said to be in critical condition. One survivor told reporters what he thinks happened.
I thought we had landed, and I think, in fact, we had hit something. The next thing I know, I saw the flame coming, and I thought we were going to explode.
Dallas is the world's 3rd busiest airport. The crash investigation will continue for many hours to come. Simon Marks, TVAM News, Texas.
The row over the BBC's decision to veto a documentary featuring a man said to be an IRA leader has intensified. Journalists at ITN voted to join their BBC colleagues in a 24-hour strike on Wednesday, the day the programme was due to be screened. Journalists at TVAM and Thames Television vote on Monday. Meanwhile, the BBC have revealed why they banned the controversial programme.
The BBC's governors say they banned the programme, including an interview with the IRA's alleged Chief of Staff, Martin McGuinness, because crucial guidelines for sensitive issues weren't followed. And they say the terrorist view was portrayed too sympathetically. Meanwhile, ITN journalists say they decided to join the strike to ensure they're never put under the same pressure. ITN bosses immediately responded by invoking an industrial disputes procedure in an attempt to ensure that the journalists work normally. But father of the chapel, Giles Smith, says the strike action isn't aimed at ITN and the union won't recognise the procedure.
Action. We want to stress that this action is not taken against our own management in any way at all. Indeed, we would think that it was in our own management's interests. This is the way our members feel, because we could be the next to be put under the sort of pressure the BBC were put under by the government.
ITN's management could now take their case to court.
Security forces on both sides of the Irish border are on alert this morning to stop an American IRA sympathiser from entering Northern Ireland.
Ferrari for £940,000, including MOT certificate, of course. And the Italians had a brilliant idea to beat pollution and traffic jams. What happened was that Milan Council offered the free loan of bicycles to say goodbye to the sausage roll from British Rail and hello to the gourmet delight. As scientists claim they found the secret of youth, we ask how far we'll go to stay young and beautiful. And we'll be asking what made superstar Joan Collins fall for Bungalow Bill Wiggins. It's none of our business, of course, but that's never stopped us. And speaking of the happy young couple, Joan and Bill have been enjoying a spot of golf down at Moor Park near Rickmansworth in the Four Stars Golf Tournament, along with Jimmy Tarbuck, Ronnie Corbett, Terry Wogan and Henry Cooper. Emma Freud has gone to Moor Park to become a groupie. That will end. They're about to introduce sweeping changes, which they reckon will make it as good as railway grub anywhere in the world. Joan would like to taste Cuisine 2000 on our behalf.
At the turn of the century, in the heyday of rail travel, dining on board was a marvellous gastronomic experience never to be forgotten. Rail historian John Huntley.
And potted ferns and a full four-course meal in those days for about 5 shillings. That's 25p.
But since then, it's been downhill all the way, at least according to the average British Rail passenger.
I think it's very bland, very boring, not usually very well prepared.
Well, it never tastes right. It sometimes tastes cold and sometimes it doesn't taste very fresh either.
I would like to see it, A, better presented, i.e. the tablecloths are generally dirty, a better standard and more reliability.
Even British Rail themselves admit they haven't been on the right track.
Well, for the past 100 years, it hasn't changed, and therefore it's become boring. And I'm sure that a majority of music hall jokes that we've endured, there's been an awful lot of fact in there. So we've got to change.
In fact, British Rail was so depressed at people having a go at their food that they actually considered doing away with it altogether. The problem has been turning out 300 meals a day from a kitchen you couldn't swing a hamster in, especially when you're hurtling along at 125 miles an hour. But now, British Rail think they've really got it cracked. In a fortnight's time, they officially launch a revolutionary new system called Cuisine 2000. Meals are partially cooked off the train, chilled in foil trays, then delivered and finished on board for 20 minutes before serving. There'll be a much greater choice of dishes on the menu. How does duck with gingered shallots or noisette of lamb with broccoli and Milanese on the 11:20 from Crewe to Scunthorpe grab you? Well, as far as the new food went, Cuisine 2000 was an unqualified success with our travelling test panel. Master Chef Jean Conil.
Well, it is what it says, la cuisine.
la cuisine de l'avenir, the cuisine of the future. I think it's a great improvement from the old-fashioned meat and two veg.
But along with the good news, British Rail have dropped a bombshell.
On the Cuisine 2000 trains, there'll be no restaurant car.
What? No restaurant car?
The restaurant car, unfortunately, has got this glamour to it, but it hasn't been attracting the passengers as we would have liked. It seems to be an intimidating place.
The new food will be served to passengers in their seats on plastic trays. More convenient, perhaps, but bleak news for lovers of the restaurant car, like actor Michael Palin, chairman of Transport 2000.
I was a train spotter, and I used to go to Retford Station, and I can remember trains coming by very fast up that East Coast main line, and what really captured my imagination were people sitting at little tables with lamps in the middle of the table, eating meals. And I said, one day, you know, I shall have a lamp of my own and a meal of my own.
To him, trains and restaurant cars go together like Laurel and Hardy, Rolls and Royce.
It's a combination, really, of excellent surroundings, constantly changing, and an absolute feeling that you're quite right to be eating there.
But while many people may miss the restaurant car, there's one casualty of the current catering revamp that nobody's going to cry over. The legendary BR sausage roll.
This was made probably in the late 1930s, reheated when British Rail was nationalised. I think it was ready in about 2000.
So, a typical Cuisine 2000 sausage roll.
The great thing about the old trains, you have a window which you could throw the food out of. It's trouble, you have to eat it all.
Well, the last time there was a fuss about food was when they dropped the kipper from the menu, and even Lord Olivier made a fuss about that.
Yeah.
And he travelled by bus.
Yeah.
Strange. These menus are very posh, aren't they?
They are a bit. It's a bit like travelling sort of on Concorde, I would imagine. I mean, not that I ever have. But it's very nice. I mean, the sort of the dishes you get. Give us a couple of dishes. What have you got
What's
now?
a flageolet?
I don't think I want to talk about that. Thank you very much.
No, lima and flageolet
They're
beans mixed with a finely chopped parsley and masked. That means disguised because it tastes horrible, with vinaigrette dressing. That's lima and flageolet beans.
Yeah, put it this way, you eat that, you get there before the train does. It'd be great, wouldn't it?